Somehow something happened in 2007, 2008 that started a trend which ultimately resulted in emasculating the hen that laid the golden egg.
Surprisingly, this is the first government which seems to be celebrating the failure of the auction.
We're not celebrating anything. Mistakes may have been made by which the story got derailed, but we could have easily put it back on rail after correcting the mistakes. Instead of that, the story took a completely different turn. It acquired certain demonic proportions. And therefore, what happened today appears to be a big letdown.
Mr. C&AG, where is the 1,76,000 crores? I think it is time for some serious introspection.
A war of words has erupted after the disappointing spectrum auction as the government tries to score a political point against anti-corruption activists questioning whether CAG's figures for 2G losses were inflated. The opposition is accusing the government for the so-called flop show and for celebrating the failure. Hello and welcome. You're with We Mean Business. I'm Shweta Rajpal-Kohli. On the show today, we ask a bigger question. What's the future of India's telecom sector after this very, very controversial and lackluster auction? Let me introduce our guests on the show today. With me here in the Delhi studio, Mr. Ashok Sud, Secretary General of AUSPI. Also Kunal Bajaj, well-known telecom expert. Rishi Sahai, Director of Cogence Advisors. Also joining us on a link, Mr. Ashok Kumar Jha, former Finance Secretary. Mritunjay Kapur, Country Managing Director of Protiviti Consulting, and Arijit Banerjee, our telecom correspondent, also with us. But before we start the discussion, let's first play out some excerpts from that very, very strongly worded press conference today on that disappointing spectrum auction. Let's listen in.
That policy is best left to the government. If there is any wrongdoing in implementation of policy, certainly courts should intervene. But if you bind down the government to a particular prescription, the results can be very negative. Remember, the dynamics of the market changes from time to time, from year to year. What happened in 2010 cannot be compared to what happened in 2008. What happened in 2010 cannot be compared to what happened in 2012. You cannot extrapolate figures and sensationalize them and destroy the hen that laid the golden egg. Who benefited? The consumer did not benefit. The whole purpose of the policy is for the consumer to benefit. We talked about high revenues in 3G. The government surely got more than 1 lakh crore. But what happened? The government got the revenue, the consumer got nothing. Is that the purpose of any policy? There was no rollout of 3G. What use is it for government to get revenues and for the consumer not to be empowered? Revenue by itself cannot be the sole criteria for deciding on a particular policy prescription. And if you bandy about figures of this nature, 1,76,000 crores, where are those 1,76,000 crores? I think this is a lesson that all of us must learn, put together must learn, and that allow those institutions which are charged with the responsibility of doing certain things, allow them to do those things. The contours of institutional responsibility, which are defined in the Constitution, must be adhered to.
Burden of the song of my colleague, Mr. Sibyl, is captured by one line in an editorial which I read yesterday. But in the popular imagination, this was not the 2G scam. Rather, the scam involved 1,76,000 crore. That scam, it is now clear, was pure myth. That's the point I think he's trying to say. There was a good story in Telecom. Yes, mistakes may have been made by which the story got derailed, but we could have easily put it back on rail after correcting the mistakes. Instead of that, the story took a completely different turn. It acquired certain demonic proportions. And therefore, what happened today appears to be a big letdown. Policy must be left to the government of the day, because it is only the government of the day which can take note of the economic conditions and the context in which policy is made.
All right, so that press conference clearly aimed at making that very, very strong point, and the government making no bones about it. Arijit, let me go across to you and try and understand the ramifications, both political and economic, of this very, very controversial spectrum auction. The government, it's true, seems to be celebrating the failure, but because for them, it's a way of making that strong political point. But what's been the reaction of the telecom industry?
Well, of course, the telecom industry had been saying for quite some time that the base price is too high and it will be difficult for many people to participate. Remember that in 2010, just a little while ago, that is about 2 years back, telecom operators had paid a huge amount of money for 3G spectrum. So there was a huge amount of debt they are carrying on their books at the moment. They are having a lot of problems servicing that debt. If you look at the profitability of telecom companies, it's been going down quarter after quarter. Bharti over the last 4 quarters has seen its profit slump substantially. That is also, of course, because there is intense competition in the market. That has not ended. There was the expectation that that will reduce. Probably that will now change after the spectrum auctions are over. But before that, that was something which was not happening. So the EBITDA margins were under pressure. The profitability of telecom companies was under pressure. However, of course, there is another story to it also. If you look at it, Shweta, there are a few more auctions coming in. Remember, most of the existing operators have to also pay a one-time fee. So they are factoring in that as well. And many of the entrants who are looking to enter into the telecom space or many people who already are there and probably looking to expand will also have to participate in another auction, which will happen in the next financial year, which is the refarmed spectrum in the 900 megahertz band. It's a much better, more efficient spectrum band, and a lot of people may actually be waiting to participate in that auction as well. So when you look at this whole auction, there are actually separate ways of interpreting it. Government is interpreting it in one way, opposition is interpreting it in one way, the telecom companies probably are interpreting it in a very different way, because there are so many at the moment unknowns which are going to come in and play a huge amount of part. Remember that there is a curative petition also in the Supreme Court where the CDMA companies have gone, for example, Systema. Nobody knows what's the outcome of that going to be, because the CDMA spectrum band, the auction itself did not happen because there were no takers for it. So there are a lot of questions which still remain unanswered.
India's #1 news app just got even better. Download NDTV's new app. Fully optimized for retina display. Full screen view. Faster response time. And Sudoku. NDTV's new iPad app. Download now.